You have debated people on the left as well, obviously. You did the Munk debate a couple of months ago with Michael Eric Dyson and Michelle Goldberg, and I think some people were surprised that Stephen Fry was standing on your side of the stage. And I've always been impressed by Stephen Fry. I think he's an incredibly articulate man.
He's very impressive.
He's just generally very impressive.
Yes, he certainly is.
And there was a couple of points throughout that debate where it's the most frustrated of the last few months in particular. I've watched a lot of your stuff. I've listened to a lot of your stuff. It might be the most frustrated I've seen you, because you felt there were a couple of, I suppose, comments put out there that somebody, I think Michelle Goldberg said something about you, and you said that's actually not true, and she said Google it. So is that just trials and tribulations of a public debate? You then have to wait to give your side of it, or were you genuinely frustrated?
Well, I was frustrated for two reasons, I think. One is I don't think the Munk debate team, the people who produced the debate, specified the question with sufficient care. So, and it's very necessary, if you're going to have a debate of that sort, to specify the question very carefully. But I also think that the debate opened with Michelle with basically ad hominem attacks rather than discussion of the issue at hand. And so I was frustrated about that, although not to any great degree. I thought Dyson's insistence on, let's say, racializing the discussion.
He called you a mean old white man. Yeah.
Yeah, angry, something like, yeah. He had quite a poetic way of putting it, but the white man was part of it. And I thought, well, like, what the hell, man? First of all, I think he had Canada confused with the United States, because that sort of thing just doesn't work in Canada. We don't have the same history of racial tension that characterizes the United States. We have our own brand of racial tension. It emerges mostly with regards to the First Nations people and the European settlers, let's say. So, and that can be, it has its own brand of unpleasantness, but that's not the same problem that plays itself out in the main in the United States. I was frustrated because, I suppose to the degree that I was frustrated, I was more appalled really that sort of discussion would emerge in that sort of debate. It's not helpful, but that's part of the identity politics issue.
Yeah,
Everything's about your damn group.
But you said you don't know anything about me. That was your response.
He doesn't know anything about me. Yeah. Well, I know. He invited me in his supercilious manner to go attend, it was a black church, which was a perfectly fine idea, I suppose, but he has no idea what sort of involvement I've had with the trials and tribulations of minority people in my life. I've had a hell of a lot more of experience with that sort of thing than he thinks. So,
so you haven't taken him up on his offer?
He never offered. He just said he was going to offer. Now, he did contact me about the possibility of another discussion in podcast form, which is on the back burner at the moment. I don't know if I'm going to take him up on that or not. I'm probably not particularly inclined to. But most of that was moral posturing as far as I was concerned. And he made a variety of assumptions about me for the reasons he stated. And I just find that sort of discussion entirely counterproductive. I don't like the identity politics players.
You don't like it on either side?
I don't like it, period. I don't care if it's right-wing or left-wing.
But you feel like you have to keep pointing this out because it seems to be the left that are like coming after you more than opposed to
part of that is because I'm in academia. There's no conservatives in academia. It's not like there's right-wing identity politics professors. There are zero of them. So it's the left, it's the radical left that dominates the humanities and the social sciences. A fifth of them claim to be Marxists. A fifth of is it a fifth of social science? It's a fifth of social science professors, 20%. Outright claim Marxist allegiance. It's like, what the hell? There's no excuse for that. Not after what happened in the latter half of the 20th century, and a fair bit in the first half too. There's simply no excuse for that. And one of the technical problems in our society is that we haven't figured out how to identify the unacceptable left. And that doesn't mean that the left is unacceptable. That's not the same
There's
thing.
elements on both sides. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying that the left can go too far. Obviously, they went too far in the Soviet Union. They went too far in Maoist China. They went too far in Cambodia. It's like they've gone too far many times with murderous consequences. But we don't know exactly when. Now, we've kind of figured it out on the right, more or less. We figured out that if you start making ethnic or racial claims of superiority, that you've gone too far. You're no longer in the arena of reasonable political dialogue. Now, then the right can go too far, and that's how they do it. They do it with ethnic and racial superiority, primarily. When does the left go too far? Well, we're not sure. Well, that's not good enough, because clearly they can go too far. My sense is that the left goes too far when it calls for equality of outcome, equity, which is the new buzzword for equality of outcome. It's unacceptable, in my estimation. It's not part of productive political dialogue. Implementing equality of outcome policies produces nothing but catastrophe. Now, but that doesn't have the same emotional impact when you say, well, he's a far-right neo-Nazi who's making claims of ethnic superiority. It's like you get a shudder from that, of disgust. That's a normative response. But you don't get the same shudder when you hear that someone is pushing for equality of outcome, because it doesn't have the same punch.
Yeah.
Even though I think it's an equally pernicious and dangerous doctrine. So it's a technical problem. It's not only a problem on the left, like the moderate leftists absolutely have to separate themselves from the radical leftists. But they don't know how. And you might say, well, that's the problem. That's a problem for the moderate leftists to figure out. But it's not. It's a problem for all of us to figure out. We haven't done a very good job of it. And that's not good. So, and I don't exactly know how to solve it, except to say that it needs to be solved.
There's no clear distinction. Well, there is a clear distinction, but there's no clear border to go, okay, you've gone too far now.
That's right. Well, and also, one of the things that characterizes people who are temperamentally inclined to be on the left is that they don't draw borders. They're high in openness, which is a dimension of creativity, and they're low in conscientiousness, especially orderliness. And the combination of being low in orderliness and high in openness means you don't like borders. You don't, because you want information to flow freely. And so if you don't like borders, this is partly why Trump knew that making borders the issue was an intelligent political move. He intuited that borders are actually the primary, what would you call, domain of dispute across the political axis. But it's borders at every level, border between concepts, borders between people, borders between cities and states and countries. It's the prime political issue. The leftists are skeptical of borders because they interfere with the flow of information.
So you think there's a psychological reason why?
Oh, definitely. There's no doubt about it. People do vote their temperaments. But one of the problems with that is because the leftists can't draw borders, they can't draw borders around those who are too radical. Yeah. It's less troublesome on the right because right-wingers are willing to draw borders. Now, I think it's also easier technically because there's something you can point to. Oh, there's a claim of ethnic or racial superiority. Box, shelved. It's very hard to do on the left, but it's necessary. So...